I stepped into the Deadwood Creek Saloon, my last silver dollar heavy in my pocket, planning to buy a drink and figure out my next move. The air was thick with smoke and the stench of whiskey, but what I saw froze me in place. A young woman, no older than 20, stood on a makeshift platform in the corner, her torn dress exposing a pale shoulder. Her green eyes burned with defiance as a crowd of rough men shouted bids, treating her like livestock. The auctioneer, a fat man with gold teeth, called out numbers with grotesque enthusiasm. $50. Do I hear 60 for this fine lady? My jaw tightened. Deadwood Creek was a lawless pit where money ruled, but this, selling a woman like a piece of furniture, crossed a line I didn't know I had. I'd lost my job at the mine 2 weeks ago after a run-in with the foreman. I'd been scraping by, sleeping under bridges, that dollar my only asset. It was meant for whiskey to drown my troubles, but her defiance, the way she held her chin high despite the humiliation, changed everything. 65. Look at those green eyes, gentlemen. The crowd laughed, hurling crude remarks. She flinched but stared straight ahead, like a cornered wildcat, scared yet ready to fight. A man in a tailored suit raised his hand. 75, he said smoothly, his educated tone making it worse. This wasn't some desperate cowboy, this was a man who could afford to treat her like a toy. 75. Do I hear 80? The auctioneer boomed. I stepped closer, my heart pounding. What was I doing? I had $1. These men tossed around sums I'd never see. But when her eyes met mine for a fleeting moment, I saw recognition, not hope, but an understanding that I wasn't like the others. My hand gripped the dollar in my pocket, and I knew I was about to do something reckless. Wait! I shouted. Every head turned. The auctioneer squinted through the haze, his gold teeth glinting. You got a bid, mister. I want to know why she's being sold, I said, my voice steady despite my nerves. The crowd snickered, assuming I was some naive fool. The auctioneer smirked. Her daddy owed $300 to important folks. Died owing it. She's settling the debt. Got money, or you wasting our time? $300. More than most in this town saw in a year. My dollar felt pathetic, but then I caught her mouthing one word, help. Not escape, not save me, just help. My mind raced. I'll play for it, I declared. The saloon erupted in laughter. 5-card stud. My dollar against anyone willing to stake 300. The laughter faded. At a corner table, serious gamblers eyed me, professionals who preyed on fools like me. The man in the suit, Mr. Carrington, stepped forward. I'll take that bet, stranger. But when you lose, and you will, you'll work off the debt in my mine. 6 months. I glanced at the girl. She shook her head slightly, warning me, but I was in too deep. Deal, I said, sitting at the poker table. Her face shifted, fear not for herself but for me. The dealer shuffled, and the game began. My dollar sat pitifully beside their stacks of bills. Carrington smiled like a predator. Not too late to walk away, boy. The first 2 hands were garbage, 2 fours, then nothing. I folded, sweating. By the third, I was losing hope. Then the old-timer across the table nodded subtly toward the girl. I glanced over, she held up 3 fingers against her dress, unnoticed by others. The man to my left had 3 of something. Next hand, she signaled 2 fingers, the ranch hand to my right was bluffing with a pair. She was reading their cards, using a mirror behind the bar to see their hands reflected. She'd watched enough games in this hellhole to know the tells. By the 6th hand, I'd won back my dollar and 50 more. Carrington's smile faltered, suspicion creeping in. On the 7th, I had 2 aces, and her signals confirmed Carrington had kings. But she shook her head frantically, warning me of danger. One of Carrington's men was moving toward her platform. Fold, I said, tossing my cards. Carrington raised an eyebrow. Giving up with a good hand? Before I could answer, his man grabbed the girl's arm, whispering something that drained her face. Seems someone's been helping you cheat, Carrington said coldly. The saloon went silent. Cheaters in Deadwood Creek didn't last long. I don't know what you're talking about, I stammered. Carrington's man dragged the girl, Sarah, to our table. Up close, her green eyes held fear and fierce intelligence. Tell him, Sarah, Carrington sneered. How you've been helping him. My name isn't Sarah Thompson, she said, voice steady. It's Sarah Hawkins. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Judge Hawkins, her father, had been murdered 3 months ago, supposedly by robbers, but whispers pointed to his refusal to bend to men like Carrington. This auction, the debt, it's a lie, she continued. My father left evidence of Carrington's crimes, bribes, murders, hidden in this town. Carrington drew a gun, pointing it at me. Who sent you, stranger? I shook my head, bewildered. Nobody. I'm just a broke drifter. He laughed, unconvinced, but Sarah's next words shifted everything. I've been waiting 3 weeks for someone like you, she said to me. The auction, the game, it was to create a distraction so I could get to the evidence. I felt betrayed. Her signals, her help, it was all to keep me in the game, drawing attention. The evidence is upstairs in room 7, she whispered. Under the floorboards. Before Carrington could react, she smashed an oil lamp on the floor. Flames roared across the wood. In the chaos, she grabbed my hand, and we ran for the stairs. The fire spread fast, smoke choking the air. We reached room 7, prying up floorboards until Sarah pulled out a leather portfolio. Receipts, letters, witness statements, everything to expose Carrington, she said. The door burst open, Carrington stood there, gun raised, his suit singed. Give me those papers, and you walk out alive. Like you let my father walk. Sarah snapped. The floor groaned, the fire was eating the beams. I eyed the window, the neighboring roof was close enough to jump. Sarah taunted Carrington, the evidence goes to the governor tomorrow, whether we're alive or not. I sent copies on the morning stage. Carrington's face paled, but Sarah whispered to me, I lied about the copies. This is the only evidence. As we climbed out the window, the floor collapsed, swallowing Carrington in flames. We made the jump, landing hard on the next roof as the saloon crumbled. On solid ground, Sarah explained, I told him about copies to make him think he'd lost. Men like him don't stop otherwise. The town watched the fire, avoiding her gaze. The governor's on Carrington's payroll too, she admitted. But Federal Marshal Coleman is honest. He's 3 days' ride away. 3 riders appeared at the town's edge, Carrington's men. Desperate, I pointed to the cemetery. Your father's grave, could we hide the evidence there? Sarah's eyes lit up. Papa's headstone has a hidden compartment. We slipped through the shadows to Judge Hawkins's grave, where she hid the portfolio in a secret slot. Hooves approached, but the lead rider wore a marshal's badge. Miss Hawkins, Marshal Coleman said, grinning. Got your letter. Sorry I'm late. Sarah's plan had worked, she'd sent for him weeks ago. 6 months later, Carrington's network was dismantled, the governor imprisoned. Sarah, now a respected advocate, placed flowers on her father's grave. I never thanked you for walking into that saloon, she said, taking my hand. That dollar, that reckless moment, hadn't just saved her, it gave me purpose. Sometimes, when you've lost everything, you're exactly where you need to be to find what matters.